Yeah, at Newsmax, we've been reporting issues involved during the Arizona midterms, reportedly a printing malfunction at 60 polling stations across Arizona's most populous county slowed down voting on Tuesday, which has given rise to no shortage of conspiracy theories across the state, which can be a very dangerous thing. Joining us now to discuss this is the executive director of Right on Crime and former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman and distinguished professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum. Thane and Brett, great to have you with us. I'm curious, what you make of the issues happening in Arizona and sort of the distrust that people have right now in the electoral process itself in that state. Brett, we'll kick it off with you.
Yeah, the large part of an election, the integrity of election, is often the optics, and what we're seeing is, whether they're conspiracy theories or whether they are legitimate and they're based in fact, we're still seeing a major problem in this country, and that is that the optics themselves lend itself to a doubtful and mistrusting citizenry as we approach the polls, and that in and of itself is insufficient for our country. We used to lead in so many ways, and we've stopped doing that. And right now, I feel bad for the citizens of Arizona, but I feel bad for the country that we're sitting here trying to endure it and scratching our heads and wondering what's true and what's not.
Thane, we've received a lot of assurances from officials, particularly in Maricopa County, where we've seen, again, some of these issues cropping up. Curious to get your take on whether you think the campaigns may legally try to use these issues to challenge the results in any way.
Well, Kilmeny, part of the problem is the language that's being used by election officials, which mirrors what we saw judges write in their opinions when they dismissed the election challenges in the presidential election. They always say the same thing. There's no evidence of widespread fraud, right? But the key word there, Kilmeny, is widespread. Because you're saying, wait, you mean there is fraud, but not widespread fraud? This is exactly what we saw with the opinions of various judges that dismissed those cases, as if to say, well, there are problems, there are irregularities. And I think that Brett's right. The legitimacy of the elections for a sizable portion of Americans has become in doubt. There's a lack of confidence. Mail-in balloting, absentee balloting now is the new normal. We're hearing things about printing malfunctions. That doesn't mean that the votes can't be trusted. I think you're right when you say the words optics, but I think that when you keep using the words widespread, it makes me think that we're not going to have any success. No one's going to have success challenging these elections because of the same language will say, well, there are mistakes made, but it never made a difference in the outcome.
Yeah, great points. I want to pivot for a moment to what we saw earlier this week, a federal judge in Texas striking down President Biden's student debt relief plan. Brett, what do you make of that decision?
Yeah, it was 20 plus pages, and it was actually very, very thoughtful in its language. And one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that this judge basically called President Biden out and said that it was the worst example he had seen of an unlawful, unconstitutional exercise of executive power, assuming the role of the legislature and using the executive pin to do so. Now, it's an important opinion, Kilmeny, because we're going to see whether or not this country is going to rein in executives. And make no mistake, Republicans and Democrats have done it, and it's been increasing over the years. And the use of the executive pin, because the Congress is dysfunctional, is going to only increase unless the judges weigh in and clearly outline those boundaries.
Thane, is this the end of the road for this challenge, or how do you see this playing out?
Well, it's in the Eighth Circuit is also under appeal, so it's now the Fifth Circuit and the Eighth Circuit. The early cases were initially dismissed on standing grounds. The judges were saying that's a procedural issue that you don't have standing to bring the case. But Brett's making the point that, remember, Congress has the power over the purse. And so you're seeing, beginning with Barack Obama's The Dreamers Act, that's executive authority. That wasn't legislatively approved. And Donald Trump, the Muslim travel ban, that wasn't legislatively approved. So he's quite right. It's bipartisan. You're seeing what might be the improper abuse of executive authority by the encroachment on the co-equal branches of government, where the legislators are supposed to be deciding. This is a program, Kilmeny, that costs $400 billion. That's what this cancellation and forgiveness of debt entails, involving 40 million Americans. And there's no representative democracy here, right? Your individual vote for your state, your congressperson, didn't have an effect on this. You didn't get a chance to participate in this decision at all. President Biden did it with the stroke of his pen. So that's really the point about reining in executive authority, because I just said the DACA, the Dreamers Act, and the travel ban, and now the cancellation of student debt. The Congress was not involved in this, and this is a co-equal branch of government, ostensibly, that has the power over the purse. And so I don't know. This, I think, is going to go to the Supreme Court. We're starting to see more and more of these decisions resolved at the high court, and I think this one will get there.
Brett, do you think this was a legitimate effort by the Biden administration, or was this a midterm Hail Mary?
You know, I used to not think that large decisions, significant, substantial decisions like this weren't all rooted in politics. But let me tell you, this was clearly the administration saying, we're going to do this and we're going to do it right in front of the election. And I don't really care about the consequences. Now, that should scare people, because our presidents should be concerned about expanding executive power. That's how dictatorships come into power, is by reining in other branches of the government and then assuming that role themselves. And so I wish I could say that this was a very thoughtful, effort by the administration, but I think the professor makes perfect points, and that is our system of government actually is in the balance if we don't do something about it. I hope the Supremes will come in and rein them in.
All right, Brett Tolman, Thane Rosenbaum, great to see you. Appreciate you both being here.
Thank you, Kilman.
Likewise.